What can you do when you fear that your senior parent is struggling financially? Perhaps your parents have credit card debt that they can't pay without giving up necessities. Or mom has a house payment that's unaffordable now that dad is gone. As executive director of the Helps nonprofit law firm, Eric Olsen has helped thousands of seniors who are struggling financially. Eric wants to share important facts that children of seniors need to know so they can best help their parents, including the different ways they can legally take over their parents' finances, how they can decide which debts are worth paying, how to keep annoying debt collectors at bay, and how Helps can help them. And we hope this helps you get your struggling parents the relief they need and deserve. Hey, it's Jeff Hoyt, editor-in-chief of SeniorLiving.Org. Today, once again, I have the pleasure of speaking with Eric Olsen. Eric is an attorney, and he's the founder and executive director of the Helps nonprofit law firm, and they specialize in helping seniors and others who are struggling with debt. Welcome, Eric.
Good to be here with you today, Jeff.
Well, thanks for taking the time to educate us. So I want to talk today about a situation where an adult child finds out his parent or parents are having financial problems. Maybe they have a credit card balance that they just can't afford to pay. Maybe they're having trouble making a house payment. Maybe one of the parents has died and the other one just doesn't have the resources to keep going. I'm just looking for tips that could help people whose parents have financial problems.
I can help you with that, Jeff. At Helps, we talk to hundreds of seniors facing financial problems every day. And we also get a lot of calls from a son or a daughter, granddaughter, grandson, trying to help mom or dad, grandma or grandpa. And most of the time when the children call, it's because mom or dad have a lot of debt, usually credit card debt, and they're struggling to pay it. And they don't have enough money for their basic needs, their food or their medicine. And we find out about it in various ways. And so the senior has a lot of these seniors never had a financial problem before in their life. Maybe they missed some payments and they're starting to get calls from debt collectors, or they're going without food or cutting back on stuff, paying debts. All parents are different. There's different situations for everyone. And some parents can handle this on their own and don't want the kids involved. But other parents are really anxious for help from their children, or they want help, they don't know how to ask for it, but they need the help.
So what's the most important thing for these adult children to know that can help them when their parents are struggling with debt?
Okay, the parents that struggle with debt are normally parents with modest means, okay, or low income, or they don't have a lot of income. Usually parents that have a high income don't have these problems, but usually it's modest means. So they live on a fixed income. Often they only get Social Security, and maybe they get a little pension, and that's it. They might be buying a home, maybe they're buying a car, and then they have debt on top of this. And the most important thing seniors need to know, and so do their children, is the fact that lawmakers have passed laws that protect seniors' income, like Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits. That income is protected. Children of parents that are having financial problems need to understand is mom and dad's income is protected. It's available for them. It's safe. Doesn't need to be used to pay debt they can't afford to pay if there's a problem.
So let's say they're on Social Security, like you said, fixed income, it's low, and somehow they have a $10,000 credit card bill. You're saying that their Social Security income, they don't have to take that money and give it to the credit card company to pay that bill?
No, that's exactly right.
So couldn't the credit card company then go into their bank account and take the money anyway?
The credit card company would have to sue the parent, get a judgment, and then there's a federal law they can't garnish the Social Security, and then there's a federal law in effect since 2012 that protects twice the amount of Social Security or federal benefit deposited into a bank account, regardless of what monies are in the account at the time, from garnishment. So if a senior got $1,500 in Social Security, $3,000 in the bank account is protected. no matter what money happens to be in the account at the time of garnishment. But a lot of times seniors don't even have to worry about that because they may never get sued. But if they were and someone were to find out where they banked and garnish their bank account, as long as they had less than twice the amount of Social Security in there, the bank would rip up the garnishment and throw it away. They wouldn't take anything out for the senior.
Well, that's important to know.
Yeah.
So basically, if I gave my struggling parent $1,000 to help them with their bills, they wouldn't need to give that to the credit card company. They have no, as long as it's less than, let's say, what they have in the bank, their Social Security, what they get every month, then they could use that money for their own whatever they need, medicine, food, rent, what have you, as long as it's below a certain limit.
Yeah, that's a good point because children need to know that if they understand that mom and dad's income is protected and can't be taken from them, it's not necessary for them to help pay mom and dad's old debt, credit card debt. They don't have to do that. Mom and dad have debt they can't afford to pay. They can use that income to pay for their utilities and their food and their medical bills. They don't need to pay that credit card debt and then ask the kids to help them pay for their basic needs. No, they don't need to do that.
And a senior's assets would be protected to a certain extent. It might change in different states, but that a senior's assets are not going to be taken if they don't pay their credit card bill, for example.
Yeah, we talked about how income is protected. As a practical matter, your assets are protected too, and I'll explain how. Every state has what's called exemption laws that protect a certain amount of equity in property. So an amount of equity in a home or amount of equity in personal property. And it varies from state to state. Some states protect a very small amount, even nothing, and some states protect more. But we help people in all 50 states. Okay. It is not the practice of consumer judgment creditors like a credit card to go after a person's personal property, like anything they have at home or a car if it's free and clear. They just don't do it. Now, maybe technically under the law, they might be allowed to do that, but for a lot of different reasons, they don't do it. And I know I'm 72, been an attorney for 42 years, 30, 40,000 bankruptcies. I know what creditors do and what they don't do. They don't do that. Now, it's pretty much the same thing with a home. A certain amount of equity is protected in a home. But if a creditor got a judgment against a senior and they owed money, a judgment can become a lien on the home, but it's not their practice to go out and take seniors' homes.
Good to know. So a senior's income is protected. Their assets are for the most part protected. How can children use this information to help their parents?
I talk to a lot of seniors, okay, and I talk to a lot of children that call on behalf of seniors. And whenever I talk to a son or a daughter, I feel really good that a son or daughter is watching out for mom or dad, and they're willing to step up and help them, because this can be a huge problem for a senior. So there's some practical things that if a child is approached by mom and dad, or somehow they find out about the problem and mom and dad is willing to have the kid step in and help, first thing the kids need to know some basic things like that we just talked about. And sometimes it might be necessary for the kid to take more active control over the parent's finances. Now, there's different ways for them to do that. And it could be something as simple as having the kid's name added to the bank account. So it's a joint bank account. So mom's Social Security goes into the bank account, but the daughter's name is on the account. And the daughter says, Mom, I'll take care of your bills for you. I'm going to help you with this. Okay. So the senior still has control, but the daughter's willing to help. Now, there's another option too. The senior could give the child a general power of attorney. That would allow the child to take over the bank account and take over finances in other ways too. So it's a little bit more broader in effect where they have control. But a parent could revoke the power of attorney, but as long as the child's working in the parent's best interest, the parents I talk, they're very happy to have kids help them take care of these financial problems. But it's important for the kids to know some basics. Can't force a parent normally to take over for them. There are ways that it just doesn't happen that often, but normally it's better if it's kind of a joint team effort. But it's either a joint bank account or power of attorney. We've got there's a lot of links on the internet to power of attorney forms. We offer those to people that need them free. So a power of attorney, it's signed by the mom or dad, or both mom and dad, and then it's notarized, and it gives the kid authority to act on the parent's behalf.
If my name is added to a parent's bank account, their income, their Social Security is still protected. It doesn't become a non-senior bank account where the money could be garnished.
That is true.
So if a child takes this act, sets up a joint bank account with their struggling parent, or gets power of attorney, so what can they do if there's a big credit card bill that the parent just can't afford to pay?
A lot of times there'll be a lot of credit card bills. There might be other bills as well. So, so when you're helping mom and dad, what you want to do is decide what debts do we pay and what debts do we not pay. Okay. So give some examples. Maybe mom and dad have 10 credit cards they can't afford. Maybe they want to keep one credit card. Okay. And if it's a smaller balance and they could keep making that payment and keep that credit card, as long as that credit card isn't backed by a bank where the mom and dad have another credit card that they're not going to pay. Banks don't care about your other debts as long as they're getting paid. And like I said earlier, if you look at mom and dad's finances and they stop paying these credit card debts, which they can do, okay, then maybe they can afford the car payment, and maybe they can, afford that. Maybe they'll afford the house payment easier. It takes a lot of pressure on them. So when the kid is involved, you're in control now, or helping mom and dad make these decisions. Okay. And it's going to take a lot of pressure off the parent when the kid is involved. It happens all the time. I talk to seniors a lot, and I may talk to someone and I'll sense that, this person needs help for different reasons. Maybe they're a little elderly. Okay. Or they may be completely okay, but because of the situation, I'll tell them, this would be really good if I talk with you and your mom and your daughter or your son together at the same time. Or if I'm talking to a kid, in fact, I just had a call earlier this morning. I talked to the son yesterday. He called back with the mother. Okay. And the mother was very sharp and had a ton of questions. And yesterday I told him, why don't you call back with your mom so we can talk to her about this, so she understands her rights. And she was very glad to have that call.
Basically, to recap, you're saying a senior's income is protected. That's one thing that kids need to know about their struggling parents' finances. 2, that their assets are for the most part protected. 3, you can do a joint bank account, or even get power of attorney to help them with their finances. And 4, it's like you can decide which debts, if there are a lot of debts, more than they can pay, decide which debts to pay and which debts not to pay. So you may end up giving an expensive car back to the dealer because they just can't afford to pay it anymore. But there's plenty of other ways for them to get around. But you're in charge to decide which of the debts you can pay and which ones you shouldn't pay.
And it may be, Jeff, that we're not going to pay any of them. I talked to a lot of seniors, their only income's like $1,200, $1,500 in Social Security, or it could be more than that, depending on what their expenses are. If they got 20,000 in credit card debt, maybe they can't pay any of them. Got a small one, you really wanted to keep it, you could choose to keep paying that.
So even though the child is getting involved with the bank account, helping to pay the bills, let's say, mom's still the one who's going to feel all these calls from angry debt collectors saying, hey, can you, pay this bill? Da, 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 da. So what do you do about the debt collectors who will be all over her when the credit card stops getting paid?
So this is another thing that children need to know. And we tell this to seniors, we want to tell their kids. So there was a federal law passed back in 1974 called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And what it provides is that if you send what's called a cease and desist letter to a debt collector, that debt collector can no longer call or send demand letters to that person. Okay. And debt collectors know that, and they'll stop calling and they'll stop sending demand letters. And now that's what HELPS does. We represent seniors who have debt they can't afford to pay. Law also provides, if you're an attorney, collectors have to leave you alone. So what we do is send letters on behalf of our clients, explain to the credit card company or their collector saying, hey, this person can't afford to pay the debt. Don't bother them anymore. If you have any questions, call us. And it does the trick. Now, the law technically doesn't apply to an original creditor. Like I talked to someone, I think even this morning, they were current on all their bills. So they didn't have any debt collectors, okay, but they couldn't afford them anymore. Well, we still send cease and desist letters to an original creditor, talking about credit cards primarily. They'll stop contacting the senior. Now, they may still send them a bill, but they're not going to call them on the phone. It might take a few weeks before they get it entered on the computer, but no, it's going to stop the harassment. So yeah, so they don't have to pay the debt and they can stop the harassment, and you can help mom and dad do that if you want it, if they want to do it on their own.
And letting them know that's okay to proceed that way is also important.
Well, yeah, it's okay. There's a reason why Congress passed these laws, is they don't want our seniors to go without. You know, if a senior needs heat or food or medicine, it doesn't do any good for a senior to cut back on their medicine and end up in the hospital, and society has to pay for the hospital care. No, there's a reason for that, and seniors shouldn't feel guilty if they can't afford to pay their debt, and the kids can help them with that, to understand that.
And what about the tax man? They say there's no way to get out of paying your taxes. Is there a way that kids can help their parents if they're stuck with a big tax debt?
Sure. Occasionally we'll get calls from seniors that have taxes. Maybe they've been retired for few years, but they owe money, and maybe they're paying taxes. So we explain to them is if your income is low enough, you can get on what's called currently not collectible status with the IRS. Okay. A figure would be about like $2,400 for a single person or less, or maybe $3,400 for a couple or less. Okay. HELPS has emails that describe that in detail, how to get on that currently not collectible. So if you owe a tax, if you're currently not collectible status, you're not going to have to pay it. A lot of times you can do it over the phone. Hardest part is waiting 2 hours for the IRS to pick up the phone call. But you have to have some basic information before you do that. So yeah, the senior, if they owe IRS some money and they're lower income, they're not going to have to pay it. Now, if they have the money and they want to pay it, they certainly can. But law provides that they don't have to. And so we want seniors to know the law. Incidentally, if you owe state income taxes and you're a senior, the state cannot garnish your Social Security, your pension, this other income. And it's even protected in the bank account, just like it's protected from a judgment creditor for a credit card trying to take money out of your bank. State can't take it out. So if you're a senior and you owe state taxes, likely you're not going to have to pay them.
Well, good to know. What about a final tip to wrap things up?
If you've got a question, if you're a child and mom and dad have these problems, and there's a lot more than what we've talked about today. There's a lot of them. If you've got a question, you can call HELPS. Okay. We're a 501c charity. We're nationwide. And what we do is we protect seniors from collector harassment. We also educate them how to maintain their financial independence. And we're perfectly happy to talk to a son or daughter and give them some information so they understand mom and dad's rights and why mom and dad don't have to worry. And the same way our seniors don't understand a lot of this stuff, their kids don't either. So we want their kids to feel free that they can contact us, and we'll get them the information they need to know. And if their parents want our help, we're happy to help them.
And how can they get in touch with you?
Well, okay, we're all over the internet. www.helpsishere.org. That's help with an S on the end. It stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. Is here, or toll free 855-435-7787. And we'll be glad to talk to anyone.
Great. Well, thank you for these tips, and thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate you helping seniors like this and their kids.
You bet, Jeff. Happy to do this.